Okay, I managed to get the power booster out. The master cylinder is pretty rusty. It was a steel finish. I had painted it years ago, but you get some fluid on there and all the paint comes off. I wasn't going to change the master cylinder. Seems to be working okay, but I do have another master cylinder and it's chrome plated. So seeing that I had to pull that master cylinder out, looks like we're going to get a replacement. And this may not rust so bad when the fluid gets on it. With these components off the car, now I have to match up the fittings and my brake light switch, mount those on the new master cylinder. Make sure that everything lines up on the power brake booster. Then next we've got to bench bleed the master cylinder. These fittings are very specific because I have stainless steel brake lines and all the flares are 37 degrees. So these have to be used for the 37 degree fittings on the brake lines. This is how we bench bleed the master cylinder. We've got it mounted in a vise. I used some pads in here so I wouldn't be scratching up the new chrome. We got our reservoirs. I've dusted, cleaned everything out very well. And I have a couple of tubings made up. You can buy a kit, but I'm going to use these tubes that I have had for a long time. What we want to do is we're going to pump fluid through the reservoir, out this tube, and back into the reservoir, therefore eliminating all the air bubbles that may have accumulated in the system here. So we're going to get this thing started, threaded in there, and you see the tube is going to dump fluid back in the reservoir below the level of fluid that I have in the reservoir. Take this plug out of this side. Now this reservoir has two outlets on the other side, and I've got plugs in those holes. Get that threaded in there. Tighten it up. Tighten this one up. And now we're going to add fluid to both reservoirs. And I'm using brand new DOT3 I'm going to fill that one up so the tube is under fluid. And now we'll fill this one. This larger reservoir is for the front disc brakes. The smaller one is for rear drum brakes. So we're going to use this large screwdriver. We can put it right in the end and start pushing. We're pumping fluid. Pushing air out of the system down here. I can see bubbles down in here where the tube is, which means air is coming out of the pump down through We're going to continue to pump this till there's no more bubbles. Sounding a little better. Still getting bubbles out of here. This side is pretty good now. I think my fittings are leaking just a little bit. Gonna get that one back under the fluid there. The kit you can buy gives you connectors and it gives you a rubber tube. But I like this one. I built it out of old brake line. Still getting a few bubbles. Now this brake fluid in here is the permanent fluid that's going to be in your master cylinder. So you want to keep it clean. And I see no more bubbles, so I think we're all done with that procedure. I'm going to loosen these up. We're going to put the cap on nice and tight. And it's all ready to go back in the car. And when I take these pipes out of here, I'm going to put plugs back in these holes so we don't drain out all our fluid. Of course, when we hook up brake lines, we may introduce a little bit of air, but that'll all come out in the bleeding of the brakes. Please join me again when we continue this power booster and master cylinder installation.